Two people get paid on the same Friday. One checks their bank app, invests first, and plans the rest. The other feels the pressure, orders something small to cope, and says, "I'll fix it next month." 3 months later, one is quietly building wealth. The other is still asking, "Where did my money go?" That's the brutal psychology nobody teaches you. It's not intelligence. It's not luck. It's the money habits you repeat when no one is watching. Today, I'll show you the patterns that keep people stuck, and the shift that can finally make money work for you. There's a moment. Most people have it at some point in their 20s. You're sitting somewhere, maybe your apartment, maybe your car, maybe a job you didn't choose, and this thought hits you. Quiet but sharp. This isn't it. This can't be it. Not a breakdown. Not a revelation. Just a quiet, honest reckoning. And what happens next is where everything splits. Some people feel that thought and let it pass. They file it under someday. They go back to the scroll, the routine, the comfortable numbness of a life that's fine, just never fully alive. Others feel that same thought and do something different. They don't run from it. They sit with it. They let it get uncomfortable. And then they ask a question that most people are too scared to ask honestly. How did I end up here? Not to blame someone. Not to spiral. But to actually understand the mechanics of their own choices. Their own patterns. The invisible scripts they've been running since they were kids, scripts written by parents, schools, neighborhoods, money fears that were never theirs to begin with. That's the first brutal truth about people who build from nothing. They're not more motivated. They're more honest. They developed an almost ruthless ability to look at their own life without flinching. To see the gap between where they are and where they want to be, and not dress it up. Not soften it. Not explain it away. Most people manage that gap. They cope with it. They rationalize it. These people, they use it as information. There's a difference between pain that breaks you and pain that teaches you. And the people we're talking about, they figured out, usually the hard way, that the quality of your financial life is directly connected to how honest you're willing to be with yourself. Not with your friends. Not on social media. With yourself. In the quiet. When the lights are off and there's nobody to perform for. That's where it starts. Not with a business idea. Not with an investment. With a moment of radical, uncomfortable honesty. Here's something nobody tells you about money. It's not really about money. I know that sounds like exactly the kind of thing someone says right before they try to sell you something. But stay with me for a second. The people who build wealth from nothing, and I mean real wealth, not the kind you perform online, they figure out early that money is just a mirror. It reflects your relationship with time, with fear, with delayed gratification, with self-worth. Every financial decision you make is downstream of something psychological. Think about it. Why do some people get a raise and somehow end up broke 6 months later? Why do others start with almost nothing and quietly, steadily, build something real? Same economy. Same interest rates. Same streaming subscriptions. Different internal architecture. There's a concept in psychology called locus of control. It's the degree to which you believe you're in charge of what happens to you. People with an internal locus believe their actions shape their outcomes. People with an external locus believe life mostly happens to them. And here's the brutal part, most of us sit somewhere in the middle. We say we believe in personal responsibility, but the moment things get hard, we instinctively look for something outside ourselves to blame. The economy. The boss. The timing. The system. And sometimes, those things are real. The system is rigged in ways that matter. Timing is real. Privilege is real. But the people who build from nothing, they've figured out something paradoxical. You can acknowledge that the game is unfair and still decide to play it with everything you have. Those two things aren't contradictions. They can exist at the same time. What they refuse to do is use unfairness as a reason to stay still. Because staying still has a cost too. It's just a cost that arrives slowly, quietly, in the form of years that pass and nothing that changes. And one day you look up and realize, The thing you were waiting for never came. And the window you had? You didn't see it because you were too busy being right about how hard everything was. Being right is expensive. Most people just never check the price. Let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention. The relationship between identity and money. Not your income. Not your net worth. Your identity. The story you tell yourself about who you are and what you're capable of. Because here's what I've noticed, and this cuts deep if you let it, most people don't have a money problem. They have a self-perception problem that shows up as a money problem. There's a version of you that was formed a long time ago, before you had any real say in the matter. You watched how your parents talked about money, or didn't talk about it. You felt the tension in the room when bills came. You heard things like "we can't afford that," or "money doesn't grow on trees," or "rich people are just lucky." And your young brain did what young brains do. It built a model, a framework, a set of silent rules. And you've been operating inside that framework ever since, without questioning it. The people who build wealth from nothing, a lot of them came from those same environments. Same dinner table tensions. Same scarcity. Same inherited fear. But somewhere along the way, they did something radical. They separated their past from their potential. Not through affirmations. Not through vision boards. Through behavior. They started making small decisions that contradicted the old story. Saved when the old script said spend. Invested when fear said wait. Asked questions when shame said stay quiet. And every time they acted against the old narrative, even in small ways, the narrative lost a little power. That's how identity shifts. Not in a single moment. Not in a breakthrough. In 1,000 quiet contradictions that accumulate over time until one day you realize the old story doesn't fit anymore. It's not dramatic. It doesn't feel like a transformation when it's happening. It feels like discipline. Like boredom. Like doing the same unglamorous thing on a Tuesday morning when nobody's watching and nothing feels different yet. But something is different. Something is always shifting, below the surface, in the direction you can't see yet. The question is whether you trust the process long enough to find out. Most people don't. They stop right before the compounding kicks in. In wealth. In habits. In becoming someone different than who they were handed to be. And the ones who don't stop, they don't have more willpower. They just internalized something earlier. That the cost of consistency is boredom. And the cost of inconsistency is everything else. There's a word that gets thrown around a lot in finance circles. Risk. And almost always, it's framed as something to manage. Something to minimize. Something that separates the smart from the reckless. But the people who build from nothing have a completely different relationship with risk. And understanding that difference might be one of the most important things you take from this video. Here's the conventional view: risk is dangerous. Play it safe. Build slowly. Don't bet what you can't afford to lose. And look, there's wisdom in that. Real wisdom. But there's also something that version of the story leaves out. Not taking risks is also a risk. Staying in a job that's slowly draining you, that's a risk. Keeping your savings in an account that loses to inflation every year, that's a risk. Waiting until you feel ready, that's one of the most expensive risks of all. Because ready is a feeling that almost never comes on its own. Ready is something you build by moving before you're ready. The people we're talking about, they didn't become fearless. That's a myth. Fear was always there. Is still there, probably. What changed was their relationship with it. They stopped treating fear as a stop sign and started reading it as information. Fear shows up most intensely right at the edge of growth. Right where the old version of you ends and something new might begin. And once you understand that, once you really feel that in your body, fear starts to mean something different. It stops meaning don't go there. It starts meaning this matters. And that reframe, quiet, unglamorous, hard one, changes everything about how you move through financial decisions. There's also something else. Something about the nature of failure that these people understand differently. Most people treat failure as evidence. Evidence that they were wrong. That they're not cut out for this. that they should have listened to the voice that told them to stay safe. And so they stop. They collect their wound and they go home. But the ones who build from nothing treat failure as data. They don't enjoy it. They're not masochists. They lose sleep over it. They feel the shame of it. But they don't let it write the final sentence. They ask, what did this teach me that I couldn't have learned any other way? And that question, asked honestly, is worth more than any course, any book, any mentor. Because the answer is always something you couldn't have been told. It had to be lived. And now it's yours. Permanent. Unshakable. That's a different kind of asset. One that doesn't show up on any balance sheet. But it compounds just the same. I want to talk about something that's almost invisible when you're inside it. The environment you build around yourself. Not your neighborhood. Not your city. The people. The conversations. The information you let in every single day. Because here's what the research actually shows, and this isn't motivational rhetoric, this is behavioral science. Your financial outcomes are deeply, uncomfortably connected to the 5 or 6 people you spend the most time with. Not because of peer pressure in the obvious sense. Not because your friends are dragging you down or lifting you up like some self-help poster on a gym wall. But because of something quieter. Something called social norming. Your brain is constantly scanning your environment and asking, what's normal here? What do people like me do? What's acceptable? What's embarrassing? And it calibrates your behavior accordingly. Without you noticing. Without you consenting. If everyone around you treats money as something that's always scarce, always stressful, always out of reach, that becomes your baseline reality. Not because it's true. Because it's familiar. And familiar feels like truth. That's the trap. The people who build wealth from nothing, many of them describe a moment where they started feeling subtly out of place in their old environment. Not superior. Not disconnected. Just misaligned. They'd stopped finding certain conversations interesting. They'd started asking questions nobody around them was asking. They'd developed an appetite for a different kind of information. And that shift, uncomfortable, sometimes lonely, was actually a signal. Growth always feels like displacement before it feels like arrival. But here's the part that matters. You don't need to abandon your people. You don't need to become someone cold or transactional in your relationships. What you need is to deliberately add voices to your life that expand what feels possible. A book written by someone who built something from nothing. A podcast where people talk honestly about failure and recovery. A mentor, even a distant one, someone whose decisions you can study, whose thinking you can absorb. You don't need proximity. You need exposure. Because the mind is porous. It takes the shape of what it's repeatedly exposed to. And if everything you consume confirms that financial struggle is just the way things are, that's the reality your brain will keep building. But if you start letting in evidence that another way exists, not as fantasy, but as documented reality, as someone else's lived experience, something starts to shift. Not overnight. Never overnight. But the ceiling rises. Quietly. The way ceilings do when you stop looking at them. And one day you realize you're thinking about money differently. Making different calculations. Feeling different things when an opportunity appears. You didn't become a different person in a single moment. You just kept choosing differently. Long enough for it to matter. That's the part nobody puts in the thumbnail. If you've made it this far into the video with me, and I mean really made it, not just had it playing in the background while you scrolled through something else, I want to take a second to say something directly. Subscribe to this channel. Not because of an algorithm. Not because it helps some metric somewhere. But because what we're building here, this kind of conversation, honest, unhurried, without the noise, it takes time to find. And if this resonated with you, there's more coming. Every day. The kind of content that actually makes you sit with something after you close the tab. So hit subscribe. And bring someone with you who needs to hear this. Because honestly, the person who needs this video most probably isn't watching it alone. There's someone you know. Someone who's been stuck in the same place for a while and doesn't quite have the language for why. Send it to them. That's its own kind of generosity. Now, where were we? We were talking about environment. About the invisible architecture that shapes financial behavior. But there's one more layer to this, and it might be the most brutal one yet. The war that happens inside. Not with the market. Not with your boss. Not with the economy. With yourself. Specifically, with the version of yourself that wants comfort more than growth. The version that knows exactly what needs to be done and finds 1,000 intelligent, reasonable-sounding reasons not to do it. That version is articulate. Convincing. And it knows you better than any enemy ever could. The people who build from nothing learn to recognize that voice. Not silence it, you can't silence it. But recognize it. Name it. Understand that its job is to protect you from discomfort, not guide you toward your potential. And then move anyway. There's a specific pattern that appears again and again in the psychology of people who build real wealth from difficult starting points. Researchers call it delayed gratification under pressure. The ability to hold a long-term goal steady in your mind while the short-term is screaming at you. While everything feels urgent. While the present moment is loud and the future feels abstract and uncertain. That's the skill underneath all the other skills. Not investing knowledge. Not financial literacy. Not hustle. The ability to stay oriented towards something you can't see yet, and keep moving toward it even when the evidence is thin and the discomfort is real. That's not talent. That's not luck. That's a choice. Made over and over. In the small moments. In the quiet ones. The ones nobody ever sees. So here's where we land. Not with a list. Not with a summary. With something quieter than that. Everything we talked about today, the honesty, the identity, the fear, the environment, the inner war, none of it is new information. Some part of you already knew all of it. You felt it. In different forms. At different moments. The question was never whether you knew. The question is what you do in the space between knowing and becoming. Because that space, that uncomfortable, unglamorous, unwitnessed stretch of time, that's where everything actually happens. That's where wealth is built or abandoned. Where identity shifts or calcifies. Where the future version of you either gets closer or stays exactly where it is. The people who build from nothing don't have a secret. They just learn to live honestly inside that space. To stop waiting for the right moment and understand that the moment has always been right here. Imperfect. Inconvenient. Enough. They stopped asking when will things get easier and started asking who do I need to become so that hard things stop stopping me. That's a different question. It lands differently. It asks more of you. And that's exactly why most people never ask it. You did. You're here. That's not nothing. What you do tomorrow morning, before the noise starts, before the day takes over, that's the only answer that matters now. Not what you felt watching this. What you do. If this video moved something in you, share it. Not for the channel. For the 5 people in your life who are quietly asking the same questions you are and haven't found the right words yet. And leave a comment. A real one. Not great video. Tell me where you are right now. What you're building. What's in the way. And tell me, what do you want us to go deep on next? This community grows by being honest with each other. Start there. Subscribe if you haven't. We're here every day. Doing exactly this. See you in the next one.